For this week's Conversations with Great Minds, I sit down with an award-winning writer and editor whose projects have been influential in the progressive community and the media and nation at large. Currently, she's the editor and publisher of The Nation magazine. You can often see her on television defending common-sense progressive ideals. She also devotes a large chunk of her time as a public servant, sitting on many boards, including the Institute for Women's Policy Research, the World Policy Institute, and the Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt Institute. From our New York studios, I'm pleased to welcome Katrina Vanden Heuvel. Katrina, welcome.
Thank you, Tom. It gives sense that there's life in the body politic. There's life in our system when you listen to Senator Bernie Sanders, someone I know you've admired for so long, and we have at The Nation. I laughed as I left the office this evening because I felt that when Bernie Sanders is a trending topic on Twitter, things are going down right in America this evening.
I agree. He spent 8.5 hours on the floor of the Senate today. We played on my radio show today. We played the entire first hour of it, and then we kept going back to it for the next 2 hours. They gave us an ISDN line direct and a direct video feed from the Senate floor, and it was spectacular. We were just, you know, it was, and he's so spot on these issues. Katrina, first of all, I'm curious, your thoughts on this deal that President Obama has struck with the Republicans.
Well, I think we have to step back from the deal and, you know, think about what Bernie Sanders is doing. He's showing some fight in the system to say, hey, we're living at a time of overwhelming corporate power, of unprecedented inequality, Gilded Age inequality, as you speak about on your show all the time, Tom, poverty, and what are we doing? What jobs are the crisis in this country? We need jobs, not to fix on deficit reduction, but what Bernie Sanders does and what we need more of in this country and what's been missing from this tax debate and so many debates we've had in these last couple years where they're so sterile and wonky and inside the Beltway is a sense of a man who's bringing to the Senate floor letters from citizens around this country speaking about their lives, the condition of their lives. And if politics is about anything, it should be about improving the conditions of people's lives, and especially those who've gotten shafted for the last 30 years or so, the working poor, the middle class. And so I think what Bernie's doing is exposing. So I step back and say, you know, how did the Democrats get into this situation where you fold before you fight? Some of that is many of the Democrats in this party is not a monolith. You got Bernie Sanders and Sherrod Browns, and you got Ben Nelsons and all kinds of people, different people. How do you get into a position where you're not standing with those who you should be standing with? And I think, you know, they should have been fighting before the election. There was cowardice about standing tall. And then you had folding of cards from the White House. And so you get into a box. You get into a box, which happens so often in our system, where what's the alternative? No jobless extension and moving into a period where the House is run by these Republicans and more Republicans in the Senate. What do you do? So I think we need to let this filibuster Bernie's doing unfold. We need to see some horse trading, and we need to get some stuff out of this bill at the moment, because the estate tax thing, I think, is obscene. My personal view is it's a gift to Senator Kyle, if you look at the devil in the details, the guy who's holding up the START treaty. And I think this White House is so desperate to get that. In any case, we need a politics from below, from outside D.C., and again, to drive those majority views, which are opposed to this extension of Bush tax cuts for the richest, into a representative system of politics, which we're supposed to have. And that, I think, is also what you were speaking about, Tom. Excuse my filibuster. When you spoke of the lobbyists. When Bernie speaks of the lobbyists. We're getting...
Go ahead.
We're getting a system run by special interests, for special interests, not of and by and for the people. And, you know, an issue you've really brought front and center, the corporate power, that's a lot of what we need to strip out. So that's my filibuster answer.
Well, and you do a great job of talking about that in The Nation magazine. I'm curious your thoughts on how we might get from here to there. For example, back when Bill Clinton, you know, in the early days of the DLC came about arguably out of necessity because Reagan had, at that point in time, by 92, he had cut in half the number of Americans who were members of unions. He had just devastated the union movement, and there wasn't enough money there to fund the Democratic Party. So Clinton said, okay, well, let's go to the corporations, the same as Republicans do, and that was the genesis of the DLC. Most of us thought that Obama had broken that mold and proved that you could do fundraising on the web and be independent of the corporations. And it seems like that's how he got elected, but he hasn't been governing like that since then. Is there a new way, a third way, a different way, or are we just seeing a repeat of the old way?
Well, first of all, I think what President Obama did well in his campaign, and the old line is you campaign in poetry, govern in prose, is he did channel the energies in this country from below, and he brought those into a coalition. The young African-American, Latino, single women, working people, brought them into a coalition to help him get elected. But, you know, he did such great things fundraising on the web, the small donations, which I think is a system we need to aim toward, this public financing through small donations. But, you know, we also knew in the Nation we wrote about it, that he was raising big bucks. He broke the system of presidential public financing. Right. He broke that open for the first time in many, many years. I think you know the path forward, and I think, I'll take it off quickly, but you know it, and we need to build, what we need to build as progressives and people of conscience, and business people who understand the system isn't working, a whole coalition. But, you know, we need to have public financing of elections, public, you know, small donations. And this city, I'm sitting in New York City, has a good matching system, 1 to 6, and we saw in the elections here last year, some incumbents defeated, some progressive candidates brought forth. But we need the organizing, building capacity, power, driving our ideas into the debate through this public financing, breaking open the special interests that so dominate. And I think at this point, post-Citizens United, we're almost on the anniversary, January 21, I think. There are good groups around this country, and I hope there's more coalition building moving forward into this year, to push an amendment to ensure that corporations aren't treated as persons. And that, to me, is something I think, amendments are tough. I think that 12 amendments were passed in the last century, but they're also education, organizing tools, which the right, unfortunately, have used so effectively. And it's time for progressives, pro-democracy activists to think hard about how to do that in ways that'll, you know, bring ordinary people's voices into the system, allow ordinary people to run for office, allow ordinary people's voices to be the lobbyists in Washington.
You recently published an article in The Nation, Katrina, The Imperiled Presidency, Afghanistan, NAFTA, federal pay freeze, tax cuts for the wealthy. Do you think that President Obama can change course and be the change that he campaigned on? And to that, is it possible that if he loses this battle, where they went down in flames yesterday in the House and today there was a real pushback in the Senate with Senator Sanders and Mary Landrieu and Sherrod Brown, is it possible that this could be a come-to-Jesus moment for Obama in which he makes a turn in a more progressive direction?
Good question. I think back to your first point, listen, I know people who fell in love with President Obama. I think it's very dangerous to fall in love with any politician. Invariably, you get disappointed. You get cuckolded. I believe progressives need to be as pragmatic and clear-eyed about President Obama as he is about us, not as angry as he's been in the last week or so. One person, one man, one woman, cannot change the system we're living in. It requires forces from below, which have brought about the great transformational changes in our history. It requires coalitions of people, from labor to young people to African Americans, working together to make that change and building that power from below to drive change into the system. And I believe that the structural obstacles in the system need to be something progressives fix on real hard in this next period. President Obama, listen, I think there are 2, 3 Obamas, and I think he is still open to moving and pressure. A good president becomes a great president if he or she engages those forces who want to support him, who, in fact, as they say in Texas, brung him to the party. Mm-hmm. And I think you're very interesting in noting that this may be a moment where he understands he's got to re-engage that base. I said this past week when he kind of lashed out at people who are critics, he would be far more effective in trying to engage and listen. Respect rather than dis and demobilize. To remobilize that base would be a powerful phenomenon, even while there has to be independent organizing going on. But we're seeing some faces in that party. Bernie Sanders has been there a long time, but others are emerging. Even Senator Schumer in New York, who was urging President Obama to fight harder on these tax cuts. So he's going to have more pressure within his party moving forward, and of course he needs it from outside as well.
Katrina, what do you see as the most important issue that's confronting America right now, politically?
I think the most important issue is the inequality that defines so much of this country. I speak first morally, but I think politically, I think pragmatically, it is very difficult for a system of decency, putting aside left-right, but a politics of decency and dignity, a politics that works for a country's people if you have this extraordinary wealth disparity. And with that disparity, as you know so well, Tom, comes power disparity.
So what in your mind do we do about
hope.
that?
I think what we need to do about it is, what strikes me sitting here is about 2 years ago, we faced the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. How is it that because of reckless deregulation, a failed neoliberal model, banks' greeds, how is it that we, 2 years later, are looking at a restoration of this kind of neoliberal model with deficits and debt as our urgent priorities, without trying to understand the structural problems of the system? How do we do it? It's a long haul. I think some of it is in rebuilding a vision, in a progressive democratic left, thinking very hard, working inside outside, because as we see tonight with Senator Sanders and their other allies inside, but to craft a vision of the kind of country we want to live in, and then organize powerfully around that, and to find the entry points. It is very tough, and it is about also demobilizing the money, remobilizing people to fight for that kind of society. But I think until we begin to understand, and again, I come back to the fact, I wrote a column in the Washington Post a few weeks ago, you know, this Chamber of Commerce, which is a blight on our system, because what it cares about is profit. It doesn't care about building a more secure country. There are business people, enlightened business people, who want to build a more sustainable, equitable economy. And I think one needs to bring them in, and I think one needs to find counters to the kind of business model that is not the one that was building the social compact post-World War II, not to be too nostalgic about that system. But, you know, we had labor as part of that compact. We had a more enlightened business community. It wasn't all about profit maximization and derivatives, and was about a government that was less corrupt, still corrupt, but less corrupt, not at the scale we see today. So I think we need to rebuild that compact and bring in as many people and work with those on issues we can agree with and understand we may not agree on everything, but to fight to rebuild a country of broad prosperity and less inequality.
So very well said. We're talking with Katrina Vanden Heuvel, the editor and publisher of The Nation magazine. More with Katrina when we come right back.